Hi, I hope you're doing great. Today, I want to share with you my experience in gymnastics, my experience as a gymnast from Guatemala. My name is Maria Martinez Flores, and I am the founder of Let's Be Fit Today. And today, instead of talking extensively about nutrition, I'm going to focus on telling you my history as an athlete, which is going back memory lane and having a wonderful time. So I was born in Guatemala, and when I was 5 years old, my dad watched the Olympics on TV. He watched Nadia Comaneci get a perfect 10 for the first time in the history of gymnastics. And he thought, well, my daughter's very active, very tiny, very agile, and I think gymnastics might be a good sport for her. So he registered me at a gym, and the first day of classes, my mom went to sign me up, and she was in the office paying for, the first month in registration. And she said, hurry up, get into the gym. They're warming up. So I went inside the gym area, and there were all these girls, ages 5, 10, 12, some really, really big girls that were like 14. And they were lying down on a mat, and they were just lifting their legs up like this, very slowly lifting one leg up. And a Belgian woman, who was clearly the instructor, was counting. This was in Guatemala, so it was all in Spanish. And she was speaking Spanish with a very thick French accent. And she was saying, un, dos, dos, un, dos, dos. And everybody lifted their leg. Un, dos, tres. I was very, very upset. I mean, I was startled and I was upset because I thought I was getting cheated. They're sitting there, lying there on the floor, lifting a leg up, and then they turn over and lift the other leg up. And that's not what I bargained for. I wanted to come and flip in the air, like what I saw on TV. So I quietly stepped out instead of going to the area where I was told to go and, copy the other girls and do what they were doing. And I said, Mom, I need to talk to you. And she was writing out a check, and she goes, what is it, honey? And I go, I'm sorry, but that's not gymnastics. And she started laughing. And they explained to me that it was warm up. It was a time for warming up, and that the acrobatics, what I thought was gymnastics, would come soon. So that's how I got started. Then clearly I really loved the part about tumbling and swinging on the bars and everything that we got to do. I started to love it, and I started to practice every day. I wanted to go to practice Monday through Friday, which was what was available if you wanted to. And I never wanted to go to like a birthday party or just stay home, watching TV, playing, drawing, playing with kids. I wanted to go to gymnastics every single day. And sometimes there was a birthday party at a skating rink, and I would tell my mom, so I'm going to go home, we'll go to the early gymnastics class, and then I'll go to the party, or vice versa. I'll go to the birthday party from 3 to 4, but I need you to pick me up at 4 so that I can go to the gymnastics class. And all my classmates, ever since I was 7, 8, they knew that it would be likely that Maria would either arrive late or leave early because she wasn't going to skip gymnastics. Then it got a little harder, clearly, as I started to progress, but I still never wanted to skip classes. It was something just very close to my heart. And no matter how difficult it might be or how scary it might be, because gymnastics involves a big element of fear within the sport, I wanted to be there. And as an 8-year-old, we moved to Florida, and I started training there, and then I was pulled onto a team. So now it was 5 to 8 p.m., so a lot of you know about this. When your kid starts to be on a team and needs to participate and train 2 to 3 hours a day, it kind of, that's going to wreak havoc in your home, because everything's going to have to revolve around that, basically. So everything started to revolve a little bit around that, at least what the afternoon logistics in our home were. And I continued to, get better and better. And then a few years later, I was competing. And then a few years later, I was, quote unquote, the best gymnast in Guatemala. And there was an article in the newspaper called Prensa Libre. And I think it was in May or June of 1982. And it said, two gymnasts that, I'm sorry, it was 1983. Maria and Alma, two gymnasts that dream of the 1988 Olympics. So I was 11. I really had nothing to be, talking about. I mean, I guess I could dream about it, but when you're a little kid, it's super easy and super exciting to say that you want to go to the Olympics. You really don't know what it takes. You just see the best athletes in the world and you see the Olympic rings and you see what that beautiful celebration of sport is and friendship, and you're like, I want to go there. So that's what I started to think when I was 11. And a few months later, I moved to Houston. I went to train at the Bella Caroli gym, which was hard because my parents and my sisters didn't come along. They ironically moved from Guatemala to Florida at the time, so they were living there because of my dad's job, and I was living in Houston with a family, some very nice people that I did not know, and they were in charge of me. And I was going to school and I was training 4 or 5 hours a day, and that's what started to happen. And I started to get a little better, but adapting to that was difficult because the level was so high, but I loved it. I would train, I would, run, and I would vault and I would land. And then as I was walking back to the area, I would, land. The landing mat was close to where the bars were. And, Mary Lou Retton and all the elite gymnasts were doing bars. And I would just walk like this, and I'd head back. So it was kind of fun to have such wonderful gymnasts right next to me instead of just seeing them from my TV screen at home. So that I would say that that's what concludes like stage one, with me starting to train really hard at a level of gymnastics, at a gym that provided very, very good level of gymnastics. And then I guess I eased into what I call phase two. It's like, oh my gosh, this is what it takes. A few months later, we started doing double workouts, which means that, you train in the morning, a couple hours, then you go to school and you train in the afternoon. I started to do that as an 8th grader, and that was super exhausting. I was very, very tired. I was getting a lot better, but I was super tired. I was building a whole lot of muscle, and I was working on flexibility because as a gymnast, I was actually very, very unflexible. I was talented in strength. I had a lot of natural strength, and I loved to develop more and more strength. Do a lot of push-ups and press handstands and pull-ups. I was super, super good at those. And I was like the least flexible of all the gymnasts. So I started to realize I needed to work on my flexibility a lot. And as 8th grade started and we started doing double workouts, we had Mary Lou Retton, who had just won the Olympics, the 1984 Golden Girl of the Olympics. And she was coming to Houston for a 7 cities tour. And I was chosen. I was chosen of one of the little Caroli gymnasts to go out and support the U.S. team as they did the exhibition in Houston. And about 3 days before that, I was in my Saturday morning workout, and I was doing a new dismount off the high bar, a toe shoot front, and I was doing a timer on one set of bars, and then I was flipping it on the other. I was doing a timer on one and flipping it, and I decided that on the mat, that was the hard mat, not the pit, I was going to go ahead and flip it. And I did my free hip, giant toe shoot front. And my feet came off a little too early. So I thought, I'm not high enough. I better tuck in really, really tight so I can make it over. And I started to do that. But then I was like, no, I better not. I better just open out and do a timer. So by the time I tucked tight and opened out, changing my mind, I had already flipped over. So I landed straight into the mat and broke 4 bones immediately. And it was the most excruciating pain in my life. My arms bent like this. Right here, I had 90-degree angles in the middle of my elbows. And it was not exposed, so my skin was intact, but I just felt like my arm was being torn off from right here. It was a horrible, horrible sensation. It was so, so painful. I was rushed to the hospital. They called the best orthopedic surgeon that they could find. They had to wait because I had eaten breakfast a couple hours earlier. They had to wait about 3 or 4 hours before they could actually do surgery. And I was in excruciating pain. I weighed about 89 or 92 pounds. They gave me as much morphine as they could, and then they just waited. And I went into surgery, and I had my arms fixed, and they put plates and screws in there. And then it was, I guess you could call it stage 3, road to recovery. And that was that was a few hard months. By then, my family had moved from Florida to Houston to live with me, and I wasn't training. So the whole reason for being in that city, my mom and dad and my sisters, was to be with me because of my gymnastics, and I was unable to train. And my friends visited me at the hospital. My mom and dad took the best care of me. I got all these boxes of letters and cards and people being so wonderful and sending words of encouragement. So it was beautiful to see that in so many people, how sweet they were. And I felt very loved and very cared for, but my teammates were continued to do this and I was not doing anything. So in my mind, even in the hospital, even the day after the surgery, I was thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? They're getting ahead of me. And I never really considered quitting gymnastics. It didn't cross my mind. I mean, you don't quit because you fell and broke something. You don't quit because of an injury. It's just, you roll with the punches. It's part of the game. So long story short, I came back little by little. I started working hard. I was able to still make it to the end of the competition season. Instead of going the level that I was supposed to, I remained at a one level lower, but I came back pretty strong. I won state meet, I won regionals, and then it was time to go elite. That summer came, I started training. I switched gyms, moved to a gym in Cyprus with Gizi Olteen. When she set up her gym, Gizi's Gymnastics, about 60 gymnasts from that gym moved over to this gym in Cyprus, and we started training. And a really good coach from Florida was hired, and Jack Thomas, he was actually coaching me on bars, floor, and vault. So I was doing beam with Gizi, the other events with this coach, and that's the stage where I really, really, really started getting new tricks, getting super strong. Vaulting really powerful, getting my flip flop layout on beam, triple full on floor, double pikes, and it was just wonderful. It was I feel wonderful stage. And I started competing internationally for Guatemala, winning Central American Games, medaling in Central America and Caribbean Games. And I guess you could say stage 4 came along because by now my parents had left again. My family had moved back to Guatemala. I was living with another family. And it was time for the real deal. It was time for the real deal. And now when I was talking about the Olympics, I wasn't, like drawing little castles in the air. I knew what it really meant to train to try to achieve that. And so as I turned 15 and I was getting ready to work this hard, one of my friends said, I'm quitting, and I said, no, don't quit. And she goes, yeah, we're not going to be in the Olympics. And I was like, speak for yourself. I didn't say it, because she was a dear friend and I didn't want to offend. But I was like, man, that hasn't changed for me. I'm doing it. I'm going. And a few months later, the coach that was coaching me left that gym. And I was doing 70-80% of my training with him. So the way things worked out, he ended up moving to Guatemala, training gymnasts there. And I moved back home. And since my family was once again in Houston by now, for the second time following me, they had to stay in Houston to finish out the school year. And now I was in Guatemala because I moved suddenly, living with my grandparents. So now it was my grandparents' turn to take me to morning practice. Then I went to school. There was a driver involved, the whole thing. And then I had an afternoon practice from 5 to 9 p.m. And that's how I went to Pan Am Games. Which was the most fun meet in the world. It was in Indianapolis. We had a blast. And I got to see the Cubans again. And I was super good friends with all the girls on the U.S. team. Made friends with the Canadians, the Brazilians. It's just amazing. Anybody who's ever competed in sports, you know what I'm talking about. You know the kind of friendships that you're forming with people, and you're learning about different cultures and how absolutely amazing and fun it is. So I was just having the time of my life at these international competitions and meeting people. And I was always so lucky because wherever I went, there was a group of people that decided to cheer for me. I was the only gymnast. I was the only one from my country. I didn't have a team. So it was just me and my coach traveling and competing. And either my coach knew somebody who knew somebody, and they drove 2 hours to watch, and they brought a group of 10 little gymnasts to cheer me on, which happened at Pan Am's or at World Championships. A few people from the US team and supporters, they were like, oh, Maria's competing on her own, so we're going to root for her. And there were like 4 or 5 people that were the ones that were actually watching me and clapping when I was performing. And so I was just always very blessed to have wonderful people caring for me and cheering me on. And I don't know, my coach said that I inspired them. I hope it's true. But it was just wonderful. And at Worlds, I had a lousy meet. My World Championships were in Holland, in Rotterdam. And I fell on beam, and then I wanted to compete my triple full. And I was just so stubborn. And my coach said, no, don't throw it. Just do your regular, easier tumbling passes, your double back, and your other passes, because I don't want you to risk another fall because you might not qualify. And I was like, I want to compete, I want to compete. And so I did a triple full, and I stepped out of bounds and, got a few tenths taken off. But in the end, I did qualify. There were 9 spots available for individual competitors like me, who were, that country was allowed to take 1 gymnast. And I won one of those 9 spots. And I was exhausted. Pan Am Games, which was a super long meet, had been only 2 months before this meet in Europe. I was exhausted physically and mentally. And I went to Switzerland for 2 weeks to see my aunt and to travel and rest. And I ate all of the chocolates in Switzerland. I really think that I emptied out the chocolates in Switzerland, including chocolates, pastries, chocolate cakes, everything. So then I flew back to Guatemala, and it turns out this was like November. And I had 10 months to go before the Olympics. And I had my spot ready. Non-transferable. If anybody competed from Guatemala, it had to be Maria. It's not something that I could transfer to another gymnast from my country. And I was this close to quitting because I was super tired. My coach was training me ultra hard, trying to make up for the fact that I didn't have a big team. I didn't have a lot of competition from my teammates because we were so few, and they were way younger than me. And he was training me, I think, harder than we needed to train. I mean, nowadays, with the information we have, I would have trained 10 or 15% less intensively, and I would have been a better gymnast, for sure. But we didn't know it. And I took pride in working that hard because I was doing the 2-hour workout in the morning and the 4-hour workout in the afternoon, but I didn't have any downtime during the workout. I see a lot of gymnasts back then and even nowadays, you're there 4 hours, but you're on the apparatus maybe 15 or 20% of that time. You're not on the apparatus consistently because you're taking turns. But what happened in Guatemala during this time period was that I was on the apparatus 50 or 60 or 70% of the time. There was a beam just for me. I didn't share. I was on the bars all the time. My hands were totally torn. Remember the rips? I think you've seen gymnasts with their hands and their calluses and their rips, their bloody rips that hurt. So I almost quit. And then I thought, if I'm watching the Olympics on TV in 10 months, knowing that I could have been there and that I'm not, I will never, ever forgive myself. And I just had to pull that strength from somewhere in there and be grateful for the opportunity to go to the Olympic Games, and be grateful for all the people that were rooting for me and looking up to me, and be grateful to my parents and my sisters who sacrificed everything, not even a weekend family trip, because Maria had to train and then she had to rest. And I was grateful to my coaches and my grandparents, and I was just grateful, to God and to life for allowing me to train gymnastics and to make it to this level. And so I just said, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. There was a song at the time that was, "Here I Go Again on My Own, Going Down the Only Road I've Ever Known." And I just, took it to heart. It became kind of like my personal national anthem. And I trained harder than ever. And I became a better gymnast in those 10 months, slightly, because I didn't earn a lot of more difficult skills. I didn't, throw new tricks that much. But I was working so clean that anything I did was hardly getting any deductions because my form was so good. And I just, perfected my routines and did the best that I could. And I got ready for Seoul. And that's what happened. I got to fly out to Seoul, South Korea. I had marked on my calendar on my wall September 7th, 1988. That was the day my plane was leaving. And I went to Korea and just had an amazing, incredible experience. Um, Again, getting to meet people from all over the world. Pictures with Gabriela Sabatini, obviously all the gymnasts and the best gymnasts there. Greg Louganis from diving. Just amazing. Just a wonderful, amazing time. And I competed. I got super nervous. I caught a cold. And so the evening before my second day to compete, I felt exhausted. I didn't even have anything I could take. I had like a stuffy nose. I didn't sleep well. It's like, oh my God. And I just wanted to hit 8 out of 8. I had done well in my compulsory day and I wanted to hit 8 out of 8. And I was doing my floor music, my floor routine with the music of Guatemala, of a very, very beautiful, I guess you could say, folkloric song, which is called El Ferrocarril de los Altos. And I just wanted to do a great job for myself, my coaches, my family, for Guatemala. And I did. I walked out there and I hit my 4 routines and I actually warmed up on bars by almost killing myself. It was terrible. I did my mount, then I did my pirouette, and as I was going to do my giant swing, I peeled. I peeled and I landed like this on my back on the mat in my 30-second touch. And then I put on some chalk. I was like super scared and I thought I was going to get to warm up, but then the green light went off, the red light went on, and then the green light to start competing went on, and I had warmed up, a fall to my neck. So that bar routine was super scary. And I did it. I actually stayed arched over right before, after my pirouette, and then I had to pull it through. So I had a deduction there, but no major falls. And I landed, and it was the easiest bar routine. I think it started from like a 9.6 because I didn't fulfill all the requirements. But I did it perfectly except for that thing, pulling the shoulders over, and I landed, and I just thought I was like the best gymnast in the world. That's what it felt like. And then I went to beam, and I did a good job on beam. I bent my legs a little bit on my layout, but it was very solid. And then I went to floor, and I did my beautiful floor routine with the beautiful choreography and music. And I went to vault, and I shot a beautiful layout Sukahara for a 9.65 out of a 9.9, and I hit 8 out of 8. And I have that in my memory forever. And that was over 30 years ago, and I think about it all the time. Sometimes I still dream that I'm doing gymnastics. Sometimes I dream that I'm 35 or 40 doing gymnastics. And so like in the dream, I'm trying to rationalize why I'm there, but I'm actually swinging some pretty good giants. But just the memories of doing a sport and enjoying it so much and doing it so beautifully. The recognition is fun and it's important, but just the feel of a back handspring layout and landing it solidly and sticking, and the feel of the giant swings when you're having a super good day, and the feel of a nice layout or a double back or a double twisting or a double full, just the feel of gymnastics, it was amazing. For me to train and perform was just amazing. So I really wanted to share that with you. In other occasions, I've talked about the lessons that gymnastics gave me for my life, and how I've applied them and how it affects me in my studies, in my work, as a mom. But right now, I just wanted to tell you in, 24, 25 minutes, that was, in a nutshell, my experience in gymnastics. And I always say, if there's a sport that you love, do it. And even when it gets hard, do it, because when you're not doing it anymore, you're going to miss it. You're really, really going to miss it. So just do it and enjoy it, and do it with all your heart, and do the fun part and do the not so fun part too. For me, my weakness was flexibility. I should have worked on it harder sooner, and I would have been a better gymnast. So just embrace it, and really, really enjoy your sport. And if you're a parent, guide your kids and help them to do sports. I think they're going to have some wonderful experiences with it, and they're going to reap a lot of good things in their lives. So thanks so much. This is Maria with Let's Be Fit Today. Telling you my experience as a gymnast in the Olympics. I hope you like the story. Thanks.